Welcome to Utilizing Tech, the podcast about emerging technology from Gestalt IT. This season of Utilizing Tech focuses on edge computing, which demands a new approach to compute, storage, networking, and more. I'm your host, Stephen Foskett, organizer of Tech Field Day and publisher of Gestalt IT. Joining me today as my co-host is Mr. Brian Chambers. Thanks for joining me today, Brian.
Hey, Stephen. Good to see you. I'm Brian Chambers. I'm the chief architect at Chick-fil-A, where we do a lot of things with the edge. And you can also find me at brianchambers.substack.com, where I write the Chamber of Tech Secrets.
So as we've talked about in previous episodes, the edge is an interesting area because it's not like we're doing anything completely novel there, but everything that we've done in the data center and the cloud needs to be rethought when we've got remote, maybe not secured, many locations. And one of the things that we need to rethink, I think, is basically the security aspect, and specifically making sure that the servers that are located out there are actually booting up correctly, booting up the right software, running the right things, and dealing with issues that are going to arise, which may include ransomware in the future.
Yeah, security is one of those things that I don't think we've actually spent a lot of time talking about so far on our episodes this season, but definitely, an absolutely critical feature of any edge stack that anybody's going to run to get business value. And as you mentioned, the ransomware thing is a hot topic lately. One thing that I think is interesting about the edge is with cloud and data center, we generally got to a point where we could take physical security for granted. You could kind of assume you're in a safe facility with good security controls. And if there was some sort of intrusion or something, it would get handled pretty quickly. Edge, maybe not so much. Might be a little bit of a different environment out there. And the physical side, in addition to the many different copies, many different points of potential ingress, creates a whole very large, very interesting, and possibly attractive attack surface for the bad guys. So it's an interesting topic to dig into today.
Yeah, absolutely. I would think that, we've heard a little bit, I think, about ransomware hitting industrial IoT and so on. I think it's only a matter of time before it's going to come down hard at retail, manufacturing. It's just such, like you say, such an attack surface. And it's just so much possibility to compromise these systems. And of course, when we think about security, we have to think about confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Availability is one I think that is really going to be a challenge as well, because in many cases we're dealing with systems that may not be homogeneous. They may be running whatever they're running out there, and you really need a better understanding of the server. And so that's why today on the podcast we are joined by an old friend of mine, Mr. Craig Nunes, co-founder and COO at Nebulon. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure to be here, Stephen. Super fun. Yeah, look forward to it.
So, Craig, tell us a little bit, I guess, what is Nebulon? And then we're going to get into sort of how this fits into the edge and what this means for security.
Yeah. Nebulon is a company that basically we turn your favorite industry standard server into efficient, cyber resilient application infrastructure. And we do that by mirroring an approach that we've observed by the hyperscalers, effectively taking, something like think of AWS and Nitro, that approach to offload a lot of infrastructure services off of your server CPUs and run it on this controller in your server. And in doing that, you gain great efficiency. It gives you some wonderful capabilities around security. You get quite a bit of flexibility in terms of the operating environment you're running. And it also lends itself well to cloud-based management in a lot of ways, both security, operational efficiency, and the like. So, we've kind of taken this different approach to, until we came to the party, really only something you do in the cloud. We believe there's great value for that architecture for enterprise and MSP data centers.
So, you've got this product that basically presents storage to servers, and how does that connect with this whole idea of resilience
Mm-hmm.
and security?
Yep.
Is it? It's just a SAN, right?
Yeah. No, SAN. I don't know if I've said that word in many years. The for the edge especially, the most have evolved to a hyper-converged concept out there, server-based approach. And what we do is we are for sure presenting data services, but we're presenting cyber services. We're providing remote control of the server itself. We're really providing a whole suite of infrastructure services. And all those infrastructure services are running on this card in your server that you would use instead of your favorite storage controller. So this goes into the server, connects to your SSDs, and is controlled remotely by the cloud. What this lends itself to do in the context of security is, we are deduplicating, compressing, encrypting all data, as it goes through. We're in a perfect position to ascertain whether or not application data is somehow being encrypted in real time as it's happening. And we've got capability both with the card and in the cloud, to kind of keep tabs volume by volume, what's normal and what is a big change as it relates to encryption. And we're really on the lookout for cryptographic ransomware. And if we spot a pattern of that, after a couple of minutes, we'll alert someone to that fact. And with technology that also is associated with this secure zone in the server, anchored by this card, we will recover you back to before ransomware hit in just 4 minutes. So it's a very cool story you can only really get to if you take a certain approach. And so we've taken it for that reason.
That's really interesting. So maybe for those who are newer to the edge or maybe not quite as steeped in the security realms, maybe a weird question, but can you scare us a little bit? Like what could happen if you don't have this sort of solution, or if you got stories about what you have seen happen, but maybe put a little fear into the people who are new to thinking about this, or who maybe think it's an edge environment, maybe we don't allow ingress into our environment. Like what could go wrong and how could it go wrong?
Yeah. First of all, if you have a network, if ransomware cracks in somehow, it can go anywhere, right? Anywhere that is attached to a network. And, if you believe the statistics out there that are, sometimes they're a little more headline oriented, but if you believe your favorite security analysts, 3 out of every 4 businesses over the next 2 years will experience a ransomware attack, and 1 out of 10 of those will be effective, will get inside. And if it gets inside, the average time to recover is on the order of a few weeks. Okay, we talk to folks every day about this topic, and I'm blown away by the number of people who've told me we never got that data back. We gave up trying after 3 months. And so, the issue is, really not if you will experience an attack, but when. And when it comes to all those stats, what do they say about statistics? There's lies, there's damn lies, and then there's statistics. They are all meant to be a guide to your actions. You can change what those mean to you, right? Technology is all about changing your fate. And so the point is, given we're in a world where ransomware threatens your business operation in every day more creative ways, we need to think in bigger ways about how we protect the server and storage infrastructure that's serving our applications. And there's a lot done at the network level, for sure, some really powerful stuff. But when you think about what's inside my server right now that will protect me, there's not a lot out there today. But we think with some of the technologies that, to be honest, are running in the public cloud right now, there's a lot more that can be done around detection and recovery.
Yeah, I think that's the real key here, is that it's hard to know anytime exactly what's really running on a server. And it's especially hard to know when those servers are not, local, or not something that you can see, not something that you have seen. What's to say? Who's to say that the operating system image wasn't compromised? Who's to say that there isn't something running, kind of, I don't know, below the virtualization layer, or another virtual machine that's stealing credit card numbers or something like that? I don't want to be all scaremongering, but you really kind of don't know what's running on these servers. You only know what you can touch remotely because they're remote. And yet, they could be running almost anything. I mean, honestly, it could be something innocuous. Somebody could be browsing the web on the server that's sitting in the restaurant, or it could be something a lot more serious. Maybe they browsed to the wrong website and now they've got a keylogger running on that infrastructure and they don't know about it, or ransomware, as you said, or just maybe it's just corrupted. Maybe it's just somebody kicked it real hard, poured something nasty on it, and it's just a little flaky. That wouldn't be all that weird either in retail environments. I know a lot of people basically just, it's not working, I'm going to unplug it, plug it back in again. That's not a great way to end up with a known good server. So I think that to me is really what you're talking about here, is that you want to have these things running a known good image. How do you know it's good? Except by controlling the hardware that's showing the image to the server, that's letting the server, and so to the layman, I think what the product is kind of like a super duper cloud connected hard drive that you just know is right?
100%. Yeah. In fact, so a lot of us are familiar with machine images that we will take and spin up in our cloud-based instances. What you can do with that technology on premises is create a machine image that is, your known good certified image, your operating system or hypervisor, cluster software, applications, the patch set that you've tested, and lock that down and put that into your secure enclave, so that whenever you reboot that server, instead of rebooting what was running, which may have a errant patch, applied, or might have dormant ransomware that somehow made its way in, the next time you reboot, you'll reboot from that known good image. And that, having that across your server fleet, should something bad happen, and maybe it's not ransomware, maybe it's just a bad patch that's taken out a ton of your infrastructure, it's as simple as reboot to recover that infrastructure to what has been tested and validated by your engineering team centrally. It's all about good hygiene and keeping that the thing that's running your server infrastructure at every edge location.
Yeah, that's got to be kind of an interesting, kind of a compelling idea, that it's one more way to know that things are right. And we've heard some companies talk about hardware root of trust and trusted platform modules and things like that. How is this any different from that? Why is that not good enough?
I think the thing that I've learned about security technology is, it's an and, it's that and the other. It's never this or that. And, So for example, you guys were talking about physical security at the edge, having everything always encrypted. So, when, a drive fails and is taken away by a subcontractor for disposal, but somehow that winds up on eBay with all your data on it, it is entirely encrypted. No one is ever going to get into it. The controller that anchors this secure enclave, it's really critical that controller has a hardware root of trust, because if somebody were to walk into a store and take that and try to then use that to crack into your organization, that root of trust is going to prevent them from being able to access and provide the secrets necessary to crack in. And so it's encryption and a hardware root of trust, and this immutable boot image, and detection and recovery in case all of this stuff goes sideways and somebody does get inside.
Brian, I want to ask you a question. I mean, we're talking about this. You run a massive edge environment. I assume that ransomware is on your radar. I assume that integrity of the system image is on your radar. Is it? And what's your thought on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely both when we think about cloud environments, as well as the edge. It's something that I think we definitely have top of mind. I think hopefully everybody does these days. Yeah, it's an interesting set of challenges. Like I think we talked about security being an and. Another way to say that is like layers, right? Like you've got your your software supply chain, side of things. You've got your the images that we just talked about, all the factors that we just went through here, definitely all come into play, together in a solution. Another one, like we think about layers too, like I guess it's not a security layer, but like not allowing anything inbound to our stores would be one thing that we get a lot of benefit of. Now you've got physical attack vectors and things like that. You could have cloud resources that are compromised that create vectors. So no matter what you do, you're going to run infrastructure. You're going to have risk of security breaches and ransomware incidents and things like that. So absolutely a top of mind thing. And I think we think about it by putting those layers in place and doing as many as we can reasonably do, be able to manage. Got to lean on partners in a lot of cases to help us with some of those kinds of things. But yeah, try and build a stack of layers that ultimately gives us a good, hopefully secure surface, or at least, makes it pretty challenging and time consuming to get any value from it should you find a way to compromise it.
What you're describing too, Craig, you're talking hardware here, right? Isn't this going to add to the cost of the system? Is this something, because as Brian's saying, it's all about making informed compromises, because you have to make sure that the environment makes sense. You have to make sure that the bill of materials makes sense and that you're provisioning things. Sounds like a big complicated piece of hardware or something. I mean, isn't it yet another thing that you need to buy everywhere?
So, the real magic is all about software, right? And the whole point of this, when it spun up in the cloud, was about efficiency, and the notion that you can move processing of something from expensive x86 processors to low cost ARM processors is always considered to be a good thing, and the knock-on benefits of some of the security attributes a big deal. The way to think about the approach that we've taken is, look, every server you've got is going to have some kind of storage controller in there, and so this is just a replacement for that. It's not a additional card. It's a replacement for it, and the software that you're effectively running, you're going to use that in instead of your hyper converged path. So you're going to avoid the expense of hyper converged infrastructure. You're going to get all of your server cores back to do what you need to do and right size your edge accordingly. And you're going to get these capabilities that are just built right into the application infrastructure. You're not going to have to write another check to another company for a layer of security. It's something that all server infrastructure should just come wired for, and that's kind of the idea. Is they're in larger companies. There's two people at the party: security ops and IT. And what we're trying to do is sort of equip the IT team who, sadly in most cases are stuck with the recovery, right? And equip them with, some of the tools that, typically have been sourced on the security ops side, so that they're bringing to the party equipment that is, better protected, so they don't wind up having to own a nasty recovery across, a whole bunch of sites. Which is the other thing, we ought to talk about at some point, is how do you enable recovery, push buttons simply across a bunch of sites. But clearly that's, IT owns that. And if you can enable them to avoid that, that's a good day's work.
I'd love to come back to the recovery thing next, because I think that's a great topic. Real quick, if somebody is thinking about using a solution like yours or doing something like this in their edge fleet, when is the right time to be thinking about that? So, we already have an existing fleet that's, across all of our stores. A lot of other organizations do as well. Is this something that you see as a potential retrofit? Is this something people need to think about when they get to their next refresh? When's the right time to be thinking about this in your design overall?
Yeah, for sure. We talk to companies who roll through their infrastructure in different ways. For sure, when you're thinking about modernizing, optimizing your edge sites, that's clearly a time and place for this. But let's say you're between that. When ransomware hits an organization, ransomware changes sort of data protection as we know it, because data protection has really been about the stuff above the operating system, your user data. It's never really been about allowing you to roll back your operating system. Why would you back up your operating system, right? So the typical approach with backup software isn't as useful as we would like it. And your recovery cluster, which is standing by in case something bad happened to your data. When ransomware happens, not only is data encrypted, but your operating systems are all encrypted, including the operating systems in your recovery cluster. And so, for those with a large edge environment, they've probably got, staged recovery clusters in different locations, probably under the control of IT. That is a great place to start, because getting your recovery cluster back up fast when you've lost an edge to ransomware is critical. And if, across the network that cluster has been encrypted, you will spend a fair bit of time rebuilding those servers to get back DHCP, DNS, if you're, Linux environment, Pixie boot, whatever, and your backups, days to then start recovering what is producing revenue for you, your production infrastructure. Start there, because you can do that at any point along the way. And then, of course, as you are thinking about more broadly how you modernize your edge to handle these modern threats of ransomware, absolutely is a good time to look at the alternatives out there.
Yeah, and I guess what are the alternatives? What other ways would people have if they don't want to do a, like a hardware, software, solution, what are they going to do to protect themselves from, and to ensure that they have a known good infrastructure?
So there's I think a lot of criteria that you'd want to think about, that most is widely available, but you got to check it. So let's take the example of HCI, common use case at the edge. Just about all hyperconverged infrastructure provides for encryption at rest, right? You should do that. One of the problems is sometimes people will turn it off because it might have a bit of an overhead on those systems. You don't know necessarily how it's been set up and provisioned. So you want to think about, how can I maintain encryption that's always on? Do I have hardware root of trust? Do I have any way to handle that, complete encryption of my infrastructure? And how can I separate my applications from the infrastructure services that are actually going to provide recovery, and investigate those? The challenge with hyperconverged, I'll tell you right now, hyperconverged is great for a lot of things, but it isn't the do all be all for every challenge that affects IT. And one of the challenges for hyperconverged as it relates to this world of ransomware we live in today is the application domain, your operating system, software, application binaries, your tools. That lives in the same domain as your data services, your network services, your lights out management. And so when that stuff gets encrypted, so does everything else. And so if you can find a way to create two separate domains, application from infrastructure, that's going to ultimately protect you, because application is the target. That's what the hackers are after, and they're going after, whether it's application, the operating system, server firmware, or whatever. If they get in, you have a protected environment, your infrastructure domain, your secure enclave, where you can now reach out and roll that back, pre-ransomware attack. And, that kind of technology is possible today with, the advent of modern DPU technology, which I won't get too into. But that gives you a way to inject, a secure enclave like you find in many consumer devices today, Intel SGX, Nitro enclaves, they're out there. Think about how you incorporate that in your next infrastructure design. It'll pay off.
And that's really what it's all about, right? Is you're trying to take the idea of that how cloud servers at real, hyperscalers, you mentioned Nitro and Amazon, AWS. You're taking that technology and basically moving it out of the cloud and into the hands of the world in a way.
Yeah, for the software that you know and love today, for the data that has to stay on-prem, here is an approach proven by the folks who run the most efficient and secure data centers on the planet, now available for your data center, for your edge sites. And that's the approach we're taking.
So this has been a really, it's been an interesting and thought-provoking conversation, because we really haven't seen any way to basically ensure that the operating systems, the software that's running on these edge platforms is known good and secure until now. I guess, Craig, what's your message to somebody listening to this who is an architect or working at the edge, who maybe hadn't considered this technology or this problem? What's your message?
Yeah, so we know that the edge, it presents probably the most brutal IT frontier on the planet, and traditionally the architects of modern edge deployments are thinking about cost. They're thinking about how to avoid the operational headaches that can occur. The seed I would plant with every one of those folks is, put at the apex security, because, if not this year, sometime in your future, your organization is going to feel an attack. And the more you have, built these layers of security from the server and storage on up, the safer your organization is going to be, and the more likely you're going to be able to navigate through that. And even if you have all those things in place, think about the recovery. Think about the steps, practice the steps, rehearse it with the team. So when that time comes, you can recover your site infrastructure in just a few minutes. It's possible today. Make sure you've got that technology at your disposal going forward.
That's really good. I'm going to cheat, and I have two. I thought it was really interesting to think about the security side as it relates to knowing what's actually running on any given machine. It sounds so simple, like what's running on there, but a problem that I think many people don't have a great solution for, especially when you think about a very distributed footprint. That's often remote sites, poor connections, et cetera. So I thought that was an interesting insight. And then overall, I think what I find interesting is we've talked to many different organizations over the course of the season here, is just this continuing convergence of capabilities that have maybe been born in the cloud, making their way into some sort of solution that can exist at the edge. And we've seen it, in all kinds of places, containerization or WebAssembly or whatever. We've seen it in just a host of different places. So it's interesting to see something that maybe is more on the sophisticated side of security also starting to be a possibility in edge environments as well, which I just think speaks to the fact that this is probably a computing paradigm that's here to stay for a while, and it's getting more robust and more mature, really by the month. So it's been interesting to learn a bit more about that and to see how that's happening in the industry. How about you, Stephen?
Yeah, I'll take it from the other direction, Brian. Think about portable devices. Think about mobile devices. All of these things, as Craig mentioned, they all have a secure enclave. They all have known good operating system images. They all have the ability to basically alternate, recover the image in the event of a bad upgrade. Protect the image from security and intrusion. It's the same nowadays more and more with laptops, for example. Both Windows and the Mac have, trusted platforms and secure modules in them that try to authenticate the operating system. This technology is going from the other direction as well. It seems almost like the only place it doesn't exist is, well, I guess in the enterprise and at the edge. And so it's really not a surprise that the same kind of challenges that you'd face with mobile devices. I mean, think about it. You're a manufacturer of mobile devices. You got to have that thing. It's got to be bootable to a known good image, or else you're just not going. You're going to have a bunch of duds, a bunch of doorstops out there all over the place. It's kind of the same thing with edge, because you can't get out there. The system just has to work, and it makes sense to have this stuff. So yeah, from the cloud coming in and from the mobile device coming in, it makes sense to bring it to the edge as well. Well, thank you so much, Craig, for joining us today on Utilizing Tech. As we wrap up, where can people connect with you, and where can they continue this conversation and learn more?
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Head on over to www.nebulon.com. We've got a lot of ways to interact. You don't have to have a conversation with us right away. You can, test drive the UI and, get a little tour of things. Plenty of resources there. And when you're ready, just let us know. We're happy to hook you up with one of our technologists and tell you more.
Great. Brian, what's new with you?
Oh man, all kinds of stuff. I had a wedding a couple weekends ago, so that's a big deal. That's new. So excited about that. And then a lot of the same. So people can still find me in all the same places. Still have the Chamber of Tech Secrets blogs going on a weekly basis at brianchambers.substack.com, and out there on the socials, LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. So those are the places to find me.
Great. Yeah, I do recommend checking out the Chamber of Tech Secrets. Great blog, very thoughtful. I have to say, every week there's a new thought. I love it. And as for me, you'll find me on Gestalt IT, where I'm writing. You'll also find me every Wednesday on our tech news show, the Gestalt IT Rundown. You'll find that in your podcast app or on YouTube if you look for it. And of course, every week here on Utilizing Tech. So thanks for listening to Utilizing Edge, part of the Utilizing Tech podcast series. If you enjoyed the discussion, please do subscribe. We would love to hear from you as well. Give us a rating, give us a review. This podcast is brought to you by GestaltIT.com, your home for IT coverage from across the enterprise. For show notes and more episodes, head over to our dedicated website. Go to utilizingtech.com or find us on Twitter and Mastodon at Utilizing Tech. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.